It's title fight time. We've got ourselves 3 title fights on this card. This is the first one we'll be focusing on. We are going to the UFC bantamweight division. The vacant belt is on the line, and it is Russia taking on Brazil as Jose Aldo faces Petr Yan. First thing we need to start off with talking about the bantamweight division was Henry Cejudo and his decision to retire.
Yeah, probably the most confusing retirement in MMA history, in my opinion, to be fair. You've just beat arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time in Dominic Cruz, or at least deserves to be in the conversation. You've literally, Henry Cejudo was at the peak, and I just think it was a confusing time, and I don't even think Henry knew why he did it, to be honest with you. I mean, ever since for someone who's retired, all he keeps talking about is fighting again. That's all he's been talking about lately, so I don't at all 110% do not think he will stay retired, but I implore Dana for saying, okay, fair enough, let's move on. I absolutely think that was the right decision. Absolutely. So yeah, and as much as, to be fair, I still want a Cejudo Johnson fight again. I still want that fight. I think he deserves a rematch on that fight, 110%. I want a number 3, me personally.
And no trade backs. You can't do a trade back with the one championship deal.
And on the one hand, I do commend Henry for walking out when he still has his health. I always think it's great for a fighter to go out on top. I might be making a YouTube video about that later on in the future. But at the same time, there's also part of me that thinks, he sort of did it for money reasons, because he wasn't getting these sort of big super fights that he felt his star deserved. But also as well, he was coming up against this real murderer's row at bantamweight. And
yeah,
that's why I was disappointed, because there was so many good fights for him left.
Because he's going to be having to fight someone like a Petr Yan or an Aljamain Sterling, which are dangerous fights, but not fights that get him the big payday that he wants.
Yeah, he's chasing all these super fights that don't really exist. Like, he's trying to go after, like, an Jose Aldo super... Well, before he retired, they were trying to do the Jose Aldo super fight with him, and that didn't make any sense. But now he's trying to go after Volkanovski, which doesn't make any sense at all.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's why I was so disappointed, because there was the bantamweight division, along with the lightweight, or potentially just the absolute killer's row of people. Like, and there's some really good fights in there. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't have if he's all in it for the money, then sooner or later one of these young lads is going to take him out there sooner or later.
It does mean that the division is obviously in a bit of a limbo right now. That limbo will come to an end at UFC 251, because we are going to have ourselves a new champion. Do we agree with the idea of Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo, though? Because there was a lot of purists, I include myself in this, who felt that Aljamain Sterling deserved that shot over Aldo a little bit more.
I agree. I think evident by the last time you see Aljamain Sterling fought, he absolutely nailed it. He looked fantastic, and he barely threw a shot. He didn't even... Was it the first round stoppage?
Submission in what? A minute and a half?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that he was fighting as well was very, very highly touted, very highly ranked, and he just made him look very, very ordinary. And that's literally... No, I think Sterling absolutely deserved that fight over Aldo. I mean, I feel for Aldo, because I think all 3 of us can agree that he won the fight against Morales, in my opinion. I don't think... He definitely won that fight, but then that was only his first fight at bantamweight. So obviously your second fight, coming off a loss, you're fighting for the belt. But then again, Aldo has something that maybe Aljamain Sterling doesn't, which is a name. Aldo is a big name where Sterling isn't. So he puts a name behind a pay-per-view, isn't it? And we all know that money talks, especially in UFC.
We've been seeing a lot of that recently. I feel like there's been a lot of questions about the rankings with the whole Shane Burgos scandal that happened a couple of weeks ago. But this is another example of it. I feel the UFC are overlooking winning streaks, form, and instead they're just focusing on the big names, because we've had like 3 or 4 examples in the past 2 years or so where fighters have had like 2 or 3 fight losing streaks and they're getting title shots. Like, we got Jose Aldo here. It was Yoel Romero a couple of months ago. Holly Holm. Holly Holm lost 2 fights and then got herself a featherweight title shot.
Wow. Pretty impressive. That head
Yeah,
kick.
she's made an entire living out of that one fight. And isn't the record something like 5-5 in the UFC, and she's had like 4 title shots.
But the head kick. You gotta remember
That's all anybody
kick.
ever remembers.
You're gonna have to see. You're gonna have to see more highlights of it. You're gonna have to see it.
So, with that being said, Carl, would you say that Sterling is the number 1 contender and fights the winner of this, barring some strange scenario where it's the greatest fight on Fight Island and an immediate rematch is needed? Would you say that Sterling is the next in line?
Yes. My fear, though, especially if Petr Yan wins this, is they'll do Yan versus Marlon Moraes, which I have no issue with from a fight perspective, because I think that could be a hell of a fight. But you've got to go with rankings. In my opinion, Sterling deserves that.
I agree.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like after this fight, they're gonna go with the rankings. At this point,
We'll focus on this fight though
it.
in a bit more detail. We'll start with our Russian contender first, Petr Yan. This is a guy who the UFC have been very high on for a long time. This is going to be his 3rd straight pay-per-view appearance, and his most recent one against Uriah Faber. There was a lot of people that maybe thought after the Jimmy Rivera fight, is this guy really all that he's cracked up to be? And he went a long way to answering those critics with that performance against Faber.
Yeah, he looked really good. That Jimmy Rivera fight was an excellent fight as well. Jimmy Rivera was winning that every single round, not by a lot, but then he had the unfortunate opinion to get clipped at the end of every single round. It was almost like a rinse and repeat replay. But he's the only person I've seen that has made Petr Yan look somewhat ordinary in all of his appearances. Apart from that, he's been flawless since he joined the UFC.
there was also that John
fight,
Dodson fight where he got dropped hard in that fight. Seen that clip going around recently. People are bringing that up.
He did drop him, no, but Jimmy was working him really hard. Jimmy has hell of a good footwork, and he was showing that in that fight.
Yeah.
So with Petr Yan, we have one of the best boxers in the division, and I think the real sort of standout things for me that make his boxing work so well is his footwork and his ability to create pressure and to box people into corners based on how he moves, how he sets up his jab. I think we saw that to an extent, especially, the Faber fight's a great example of that. But even against Rivera, those sort of game-changing big punches came because he finally managed to suss out his footwork and managed to box Rivera in and then catch him with that big right hand to drop him. Especially in the first round, good example of that.
Yeah, he's happy to take a shot to land a shot as well, isn't he? He's quite capable of maybe taking one of your shots on the chin to land his own, which is one of his big things as well, as because he obviously, while he did get dropped against John Dodson, he's a tough. Well, they always are, the Russians. He's a tough Russian fighter, isn't he? So he's more than capable of taking one on the chin and deliver his own.
Yeah, anybody who fights in ACB and hasn't gotten knocked out viciously is top tier. ACB is a murderer's row. That's a Russian fighting championship, and they play that. I think that's the one where like people are sitting around on tables watching it. It looks like it's in like a restaurant or something. Probably not. I don't know if that's the right one, but all of those Russian organizations, they're all killers there. I'm pretty sure no drug tests and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty impressive that he survived all that ACB carnage. Only lost to a split decision there. That's
and
it.
a fight as well, I've actually managed to find footage of that fight as well. I personally make the argument that Yan could have won that fight.
Okay. So you think it was a split decision?
Very
so
close fight. Very close. I can see the fight result either way. The other good thing that stands out for me with Petr Yan is he's very intelligent as well for a fighter. I often find that he can start a bit slowly. We saw that against Jimmy Rivera. We saw that against, even to an extent, against Uriah Faber. I think Faber was keeping him honest in that first round. But he reads his opponent very well. And come the second round, he starts thinking, hey, I know what this guy's going to do right now. And then he comes into his own as the fight progresses.
Has he gone? Has he ever? Obviously, the Faber fight, was that a 5-round fight? Was that a
3-round
3-round
fight.
Yeah,
So
three.
is this? Will this be his first
It will
5-round
be.
fight?
I haven't seen any issues
Yeah.
in regards to his cardio, so I think he can be able to handle the 5 rounds. He has struggled against fighters who do have good footwork, though. I think if you look at his toughest challenges in the UFC, it was John Donson and Jimmy Rivera, who are guys who move non-stop. So Aldo's going to be needing to use a lot of lateral footwork, which is a bit of a concern considering the way that Aldo fights now. I think Aldo's become a bit more of a brawler than he was, say, in his WEC days.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to see some of that old Jose Aldo if he's going to have some success.
Need to see his leg kicks.
Yes.
Need to see his leg kicks. His leg kicks has almost disappeared compared to his WC days. They used to chop them down. He used to have leg kicks similar to Edson Barboza level, and he doesn't use them anymore. It's one of his best weapons, and he just doesn't seem to use them. He's more like a boxer kind of brawler and all about the hands. That's what I've noticed in Aldo's last 2 fights.
I seem to remember reading somewhere that he got a foot injury when he fought Korean Zombie.
Yeah.
And I think he started to be quite wary of throwing the leg kicks after that.
It's a shame
Yeah,
because they were some of his best weapons, weren't
They were, but we saw that against Faber.
Yeah.
When he fought Faber in the WEC, Faber's leg was an absolute mess after that fight because of the work that Aldo was doing.
Yeah, that was brutal. Absolute showcase of leg kicks in that fight.
In terms of the modern Jose Aldo, though, there is still a lot of positives to see, and we saw that when he fought Renato Moicano and Jeremy Stevens. He can still finish fighters. He went through a real tear at one point, and people were thinking Aldo's going to have himself another run here. Obviously, Volkanovski out-wrestled him and pretty much put an end to that. What did you think of Aldo when he fought Marlon Moraes? Because there was a lot of people, I include myself in this, who thought this weight cut is just going to absolutely butcher him and we're going to have ourselves another Dillashaw flyweight situation. But he survived the early onslaught, and in my opinion, he won that fight.
I agree. He looked, ironically enough, Morales probably took the first round of that fight, but that was it. And which is normally not something you say of Aldo. Aldo's normally cardio issues, isn't it, to be fair, when he was at featherweight. But no, I was on that preview show when we talked about it, and I think we all picked Morales, because none of us thought that he would survive at that level and that conditioning, especially with Morales coming off. He's obviously looking so good against Henry early on. So, no, I was very, very surprised with him. And I said it before in this show, didn't I? He definitely won that fight in my opinion. And I think it was correct that Dana rewarded him for that. Should he reward him with a title shot? That is a different question. But he didn't deserve to take a lesser fight because he won that fight in my opinion.
Personally, if it was me, I would have done Yan versus Sterling for the title. And I would have done Aldo against Corey Sandhagen.
I would have liked to have done it on the same card and done a bit of a bantamweight preview, because they had a card a few weeks ago and they killed it. So let's showcase them again with winning one of the strongest weight.
Bantamweight's become an elite division. There was a long time when it was just basically Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber on the top. But these past couple of years, the bantamweights have been knocking out the park.
Yeah. They were in a lot of the featherweights. They were in featherweight shadow for a long, long time, to be fair, but not anymore. Absolutely.
Well, how
not
many
at
times
all.
has this happened though? That like the smallest weight class in the UFC is often seen as a bit of a joke when it first starts, and then as the years go on, people start appreciating it a lot more. I mean, there was a time when lightweight was pulling in like 100,000 buys. They were having to put lightweight fights on free TV because there was no interest. And now it's seen as sort of the benchmark division.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, the lightweight division now is probably one of the most stacked divisions in the history of the UFC, isn't it? To be fair, I'm evident by the fights in the last couple of weeks.
Felder versus Dan Hooker.
Yeah.
And Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier as well. 2 great fights.
Yeah. Fantastic. Murderer's Row, isn't it, to be fair? Absolutely.
The other thing that stood out for me with Jose Aldo, just trying to get this back on topic, against Marlon Moraes, he looked a lot bigger. And Marlon is a big bantamweight himself, but Aldo looked massive in that fight. And that size advantage could play a big part against someone like Petr Yan.
Yeah, No, I agree. I think every little advantage he can get against Peter. I mean, Peter's the one that's going in with form, isn't he? He's the one that is expected. So, in essence, I suppose the pressure's on Petr Yan to perform,
Yes.
isn't it? I mean, Aldo wasn't really expected to win the Morales fight. I mean, he lost it, but just for the basis of conversation, we'll treat it like he won because we all think he did. Aldo's got nothing to lose in this fight. If he loses, people will just say he was up against Petr Yan. If he wins, he's got himself a second title in a second weight division.
And if he loses, it's going to be 3 losses in a row and 0-2 at bantamweight. And we've got to start thinking what's next for Jose Aldo. So you could say that Aldo has nothing to lose, but at the same time he's got everything to lose in a strange way. I think Petr Yan's biggest path to victory, in my opinion, is he's got to make Aldo angry. Because one of the things I've seen with Jose Aldo in a couple of his more recent fights is if you can get under his skin and coax him into these sort of macho brawls, it does damage to his cardio. He starts losing his composure. We saw that against Max Holloway. Aldo,
yeah, that's a perfect
in the
example.
second Holloway fight, Aldo started that fight quite well, in my opinion. But Max started coaxing him to a brawl. Aldo started swinging away. And then Max's pace added with that just meant Aldo couldn't keep up. And by the third round, he was struggling big time. And Max ended up finishing him. So I think Petr Yan needs to apply a similar strategy here.
Well, he's a very intelligent fighter, like you said. So I'm sure that he'll be sitting down with his coach, be watching tape. He'll have a firm game plan on what he wants to do with Aldo.
Interestingly, though, I'm looking at the poll that we post on the YouTube page, and most people are favouring Jose Aldo for this one. 51 to 49%, they're favouring Aldo to win this fight. So I don't know whether that's people thinking with their hearts or with their heads, but there are people out there that think Aldo's got a shot in this one.
Yeah, I definitely think he's got a shot. Absolutely. I definitely think he's got a shot. Especially if you just take his performance from the Morales fight, he's definitely got a shot. And on his day, he can finish people. Evident. He can finish them with a knee, a kick, or a punch. He's done it all, to be fair. So I definitely think he's got a shot. Do I think he will win? No. But I definitely, I wouldn't count him out. Absolutely not. He's a legend. He's a future Hall of Famer, isn't he, to be fair?
I totally agree with that. I think there's a lot of people out there that when they think Jose Aldo, they just think the Conor fight, which I think does him a real disservice, because Aldo is a hell of a better fighter than those 13 seconds. So, I mean, I share the sentiment of a lot of people. I think it would be a fantastic story if Jose Aldo won this fight. However, I've got to go with my head, and I think that Petr Yan is going to outwork him and get a late finish, 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah, I think he'll finish him as well. I do. I think that I'm going to go 3rd round finish.
And for yourself, Claire?
Yeah, as you were saying, it's like the perfect fairy tale ending for Aldo, really, if he wins this fight. But if he loses it, it'll be horrific. Like, not only will people be thinking about that Conor loss, they'll be thinking about the Yan loss as well. So, especially if he gets knocked out. So, yeah, it'll be a rough night for him if he's not in his proper top form. Because when he's in his top form, like the Moicano fight and the Stevens fight, he can be vicious, man. But yeah, as he said, if you get under his skin and you make him uncomposed, he can sort of just abandon his game plan and sort of get reckless. So yeah, I'm going with Yan on this one.